Welcome to Pastor's Perspective, sponsored by Calvary Chapel Costa Mesa and Biola University, ranked as the most comprehensively Christian university in North America. I'm Brian Perez, and from us all to you all, y'all, thank you for listening to the program. We are here live today, Tuesday, the 7th of May, 2024, and we'd love to chat with you at 888-564-6173. 888-564-6173. We're also live streaming on Facebook and YouTube, so if you're watching us right now, hello, thank you for watching. We welcome you to call too. The phone number is right there on the bottom of the screen, 888-564-6173 for you guys listening on the radio who can't see the number on the bottom of the screen because there's no screen. 888-564-6173. You can also send us your questions on Facebook Messenger as well as by filling out the form on the Pastor's Perspective page of our flagship radio station's website, kwave.com. But the best way to get an answer is to give us a call when we're here, like right now, live till 4 p.m. Pacific time, 888-564-6173. And answering your questions today, we've got the senior pastor of Calvary Chapel Costa Mesa in Southern California, Brian Brodersen. And joining us from Charlotte, North Carolina, it's Bobby Conway from Image Church and the author of the new book, Does Christianity Still Make Sense? I forget that the book title has an extra word in it than the website, so that threw me off for a minute. But hello, gentlemen.
Well, hello.
What's new?
Gentlemen. What's new? Well, it's good to see you, Brian Perez, and it's good to see Bobby, but it seems like Bobby's in another universe.
I don't think Bobby can hear us. I don't know.
I don't think he can either. He's not aware that he's on air. He's just looking at his phone, just something that I would do, that Cheryl would accuse me of, just looking at my phone when she's trying to tell me really important things.
I don't think he can hear us.
Oh, yeah, no, Bobby, look at him. He's oblivious.
Let's wave at him.
He doesn't know.
Bobby, he's not... Bobby, Earth to Bobby. Come in, Bobby. Poor Bobby.
Here, let me text him.
Okay. You do that. While you're doing that, I'll repeat the phone number a few more times. 888-564-6173. Oh, he is looking at his phone, so I guess it'd be good. You know what would be funny? To call him. Don't text him. Call him. That would be hilarious.
I'll call him.
All right. 888-564-6173 is the number to call us today on Pastor's Perspective, and we would love to chat with you. So give us a call, and we'll start with some of these Facebook questions that were sent in, but I think Brian's trying to reach Pastor Bobby right now on the phone. I'm just curious as to how this is going to look. See, this is why you guys should watch us on Facebook or YouTube when you can, because it's just kind of funny to see these kinds of things. The behind the scenes of what happens here.
It went to voicemail. Phone's off, but he just texted and said he can't see or hear us.
Really? At all? Okay, so we'll try to fix that. We've got our crew back there working on it right now. So, okay,
feverishly.
Very good. We shall restart the computer. The Bobby Cam needs some restarting.
Where's our friend, Tony Clark?
He is on a cruise, I believe.
Oh, right. He told us he was going on a cruise.
Yep. It's his anniversary.
Yeah, good for him.
Yep, number 39, I think he said.
39, yeah. 39, boy. Boy, oh boy. Well, we can see Bobby, but...
I can see you now.
Yay!
And you can hear us, and we can hear you.
I couldn't hear, I couldn't see, but...
We just thought you were ignoring us because the first minute or two, you can watch it later on the archive. You're just like looking at your phone or whatever. And then you had your phone off, which is good for radio. But you weren't getting Brian's phone.
I tried to call you.
Yeah.
And
I was actually texting, trying to say, hey, I can't. Brian, I like your haircut. That looks really... kind of like Depeche Mode-ish.
Does it?
A good vibe right there.
Yeah. Boy,
I'm digging it.
It was really looking really, really bad. And
I think he should go Flock of Seagulls instead of Depeche Mode. Though.
My daughter, she delivered me yesterday. She rescued me from that bad hair week I was having.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you, Bobby. I appreciate that compliment.
Yeah.
And I will pass that on to
I like it.
Kelsey, my hairstylist.
That's right. Let her know she did a great job.
All right. 888-564-6173 is the number to call. Phone lines are filling up, so hurry up. Grab an open line. 888-564-6173. Maybe you tried calling yesterday and you couldn't get through or get on. Today would be a good day to call. Quick, 888-564-6173. Here's a question that was sent in on Facebook Messenger. It is from Chuck, living in Evington, Virginia. Chuck writes, love your show. Question, what is the difference between people who did good works and claim to be Christian, but to whom Jesus will say, I never knew you, and those whose works will be burned, but they'll still be saved? What do you say, Brian?
Well, the difference is one group is saved and the other isn't. So when Jesus, he speaks to a particular group and says, I never knew you, but they're the ones who said, Lord, Lord, did we not do this and that and the other thing in your name? And he will say, depart from me, I never knew you. But then he adds, you workers of iniquity. So apparently with them, there was a verbal profession, but there wasn't a real genuine faith in Jesus, although they claim to be engaging in certain good works. Now, did they do those things? It doesn't say they did. It doesn't say they didn't. It just simply says this is the claim that they made. So the other group is, or individual maybe, it's a person who has genuinely believed in Jesus, and yet I think in the context is 1 Corinthians chapter 3 where we find that. The context is serving the Lord. And it's really talking about church leaders at that point, but it could be applied beyond that. They're serving the Lord, and they're serving him unfaithfully. They're serving him with ulterior motives, serving him maybe with the motive of self-promotion and things like that. So they're saved, but in the end, the things that they have done for God were not done in a way that was acceptable to him. So they remain saved, but they just do not receive the reward for the things that they did.
Chuck, thank you for sending in your question on Facebook Messenger. And here's another one from Facebook before we go to the phones at 888-564-6173. Jeff in Linwood, Washington writes in, quick question. Is Satan bound to just the earth, or is he free to roam the universe? If he's bound just to planet Earth, and we start putting people on planet Mars to live, does that mean Satan would not have access to these people? Bobby Conway, what do you think?
I think that he's occupied, a lot with what's going on down here, but I don't think he's restricted to roaming the earth. I think that I don't know exactly what his limitations are. He was cast down from God's presence, and obviously his mission, it seems, would be more to thwart what's happening on Earth. If there was existence on other planets, and I'm not saying there is, I'm not saying there isn't, I just don't think anybody could prove emphatically one way or the other with any kind of certainty. It doesn't seem like there is, I don't, but I do think that there's an element where even if there was to be discovered, life on another planet, let's say, then what type of life are we dealing with? Then philosophers talk about the whole idea of, well, okay, is there a different salvific plan on each of the different planets potentially if they had free will and they fell as well? But again, you just find yourself having fun conversations around the fire and really not getting anywhere. So I would say, for me, we're here, we're on Earth. I don't know that Satan would have any purpose of roaming Mars or roaming Saturn because that's not on point with his purpose. But is he unable to move and transcend different places? Well, he's not really a material being. So it seems like he would have access to, get around a little bit. But what all that looks like, I have no clue.
Jeff, thank you for sending in your question on Facebook Messenger. And now we're going to go to the phones at 888-564-6173. This is your chance to ask Brian Broderson and Bobby Conway a question you might have. 888-564-6173 is the number. And let's begin with Johnny, who is listening in Santa Ana, California. Hi there, Johnny. Welcome to Pastor's Perspective.
Hey, guys. I just had a question. So my church, I've been going there for like 5 years. They have this vision to raise a couple $1 million. And they're now asking, well, they're basically saying there's an expectation they want 100% of the congregation to tithe. And they want us to make like a promissory note of how much we're going to be giving every month for the next 12 months. That doesn't really sit well with me, especially since most of the money that they're going to be using, they want to just upgrade like the look of the campus. But me and the other people that I'm involved with at the church are kind of thinking like, well, they need to really bring back the ministries that they've cut out over the last couple of years, because now there's hardly any ministries at the church, and they're focusing more on putting like a bonfire pit and like a fountain versus using the money that they claim they didn't have to bring more of these ministries back. So I'm just getting a really weird vibe. And to be fully transparent, I called in about 4 years ago about another thing that they were doing too that rubbed me the wrong way. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Brian, what say you?
Did you, obviously you must have gotten beyond the thing that was rubbing you the wrong way the last time, because you're still at the same church, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I got through that part.
Yeah, okay.
The last time is they were trying to hire a pastor, but they said you had to have a master's degree from a seminary.
Right,
and
yeah.
Lo and behold, they never hired anyone in those couple of years because I guess no one fit the description they were looking for.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, Johnny, I mean, this is one of those things that is more like, has more to do in some ways with like a philosophy of ministry. And it sounds like their philosophy is get everybody involved, let everybody know, hey, we need to all chip in on this. Whether or not the church is on board with the vision, I guess that's going to be seen by whether or not the money comes in. So, I mean, I get it. I get on the one hand everything you're saying. I think 100% of the people, if 100% of the people in your church gave, that would be amazing. That would be a really good thing, because what you generally find,
we would like that too, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, the reality is what you find is about a fifth of the church, numbers-wise, ends up supporting the whole operation. So you got, 4/5 of people don't really give, and that's not right. And why isn't there 100% giving? We should all be giving. Every Christian, you have a responsibility to give. So I understand their point of view on that. Now, if they said, I want 100% of the church to give 99% of their income this month or whatever, that would be a bit of a different story. But then I would just say this too. I get wanting to upgrade your property, wanting, nice spaces for people. That's not a bad thing. I think that's a fine thing. But there is the question of priorities and, why is it that they've canceled the meetings that you referred to? Sometimes a staff, a ministry team, the leadership, they make decisions that people don't like. And sometimes they don't really know why they made the decision. And if they knew why, they'd go, okay, yeah, I get it. That's probably was a good decision. But then they also might say, well, I don't think that was a good decision. So I guess it just comes down to, do you trust the leadership? Do you trust that they're seeking the Lord? Do you trust that they're actually asking God to direct them and they're trying their best to move forward with what they think God is showing them? And I can say this from experience. We over the years that I've been leading the church here, we've canceled a lot of ministries, and quite often people don't like it. And yet we did it because we prayed about it and we assessed it and we evaluated it and we concluded that it was time to sunset this ministry. As time goes on, you begin to see the wisdom of the decisions, and you say, oh, "Okay, yeah, I get it now." But in the moment, most of the time, people don't get it because, well, wait a second, this is my favorite thing. I go to this, and now you've taken it away from me. So you guys, God couldn't be in this at all. So yeah, it's a bit complicated.
Yeah,
this whole thing. So
it's hard to please people.
Yeah, and it's hard to say. Like I said, Johnny, I get everything you're saying from one standpoint. But I stand on the other side as well in a position of leadership. So I do know that sometimes part of leadership is you're making decisions that need to be made, but not everybody agrees with them.
Yeah.
So
what does Bobby Conway think?
Well, I do like what Pastor Brian said, as it really does come down to trusting the leadership. And when it comes time to make major financial decisions, in particular as it relates to people's money, that's when our trust often shows up in our leadership. I too am sympathetic to pastors in this situation because obviously, Johnny, like they can't go, well, what do you think we need to do with the money, Johnny? And what do you think we need to do with the money, Jane? And what do you think? Like you would just get so many opinions, right? And so I think of like my heart when I'm a part of a church. I just want to trust the pastors to be good stewards. And if it's time to, give a makeover to the campus, that makes perfect sense. I mean, we give makeovers to our homes. Why wouldn't we want to give a makeover to the Lord's church? We give makeovers to, malls and community centers and restaurants. You don't want it to be dilapidated. And I don't know if it is. But then again, they might have a standard of excellence that is different than other people's standard of excellence. So other people might be saying, well, there's not a need to do this. Some people don't feel the need to remodel their home every 5 years. Some people do feel that need. So it's very difficult in those moments. And that's why I would say if these are godly Christian men and women and you love them and you believe in them and you just feel like it's going a different direction on the funds, then I don't think you have to create a crisis about this or get people talking about this. That's one thing that, and I'm not even saying you are, Johnny, please know that. I'm speaking more broadly, but nothing is worse that when you're trying to cast a vision as a pastor, then you get people in the flock going and talking to other people, and they're basically just working absolutely contrary to the vision. They're working backwards against it and creating frustration in the body, and that's really difficult. So I wouldn't know, and I think Pastor Brian would say the same thing, without asking a lot more questions. You could be dead on given what you know about the whole picture of things. I understand now. Look, when he's saying 100%, it just depends. Like if I was talking to the pastor, he might spin it differently. He might feel like, oh, my heart's not to be coercive. My heart's just to put a challenge out. Like, what would it look like if everybody participated? Well, that's different than, you're going to be disciplined if you don't give. Mm-hmm. I think any pastor that if you're casting a vision, you want everybody to be involved, but that that's not necessarily the case. I also think that it's very difficult for budgeting purposes if you don't know what people's commitments are for a year or for 2 years. That is a very normal thing whenever you're raising funds, and that's part of trying to be a good steward as a pastor. You don't just want to cross your fingers. So what you do is you're casting vision. You're talking about the need. You're letting people know how they could help meet that need. And then you're asking if they would be willing to make a commitment to contribute to that need. And then based on what you get back from the flock, you can kind of discern, all right, we can move forward on this. We've done that several times throughout our ministry where, this just isn't the time. We just don't have the kind of people are speaking with not wanting to contribute at this time. And we don't need to force the issue. But then when you ask and you present the need and it excites everybody and they come through, well, great. We feel like this gives us some confidence, because you don't want a pastor either that just goes out and signs a bank loan without asking the body they first give, because then he's just put you on hook for so much. So I think all I would say is I hope you hear Pastor Brian I saying, as pastors who've been in the ministry for many years, that we do know behind the scenes what things look like. And sometimes people are spot on and we need to listen. And then there's, I think, times as well where the flock doesn't always know every little detail. And if they were sitting in the pilot's seat, they might see from a different angle as well. So that's what I would share.
And I'm glad you brought up the point, Bobby, and you were saying that you weren't accusing Johnny of doing this, but
not at all.
You got to be careful with the sowing discord. Then it reminds me of the story of, in the book of Nehemiah, where everybody's talking behind the back of, Nehemiah and, oh, he's doing it wrong. He should be doing it this way and all this other stuff. So I guess it's a fine line. I don't know.
It's so discouraging when that happens. In fact, I mean, you really want to be a part of a church where people shut that stuff down. Like if you disagree with the pastor or what's going on, it's like, go and talk to the pastor. But yeah, you don't want to create rumor mills going on when you're trying to get a vision off the ground, because here you're trying to get people excited about a vision, and now you got people creating a gossip mill. Mm-hmm. And it's just the kind of stuff that kills pastors, like their heart for ministry.
For sure. Johnny, thank you for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective. 888-564-6173 is our number. Let's go to Yucca Valley. Here's Ron. Hello, Ron.
Hey, what's up?
Are you on speakerphone or something?
There we go. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, so I've been a Christian for a pretty long time. I accepted Jesus Christ when I was 15. And anyway, so after you have this kind of this guilt trip going on, I bought this little bird bath. It has a lion's head. Water comes out of the mouth, goes on the whole base of the bird, And it reminds me of Jesus every time I look at it. And it's a trip. Is that normal?
So this lion's head reminds you of Jesus. Are you worshiping it? Are you bowing down to it? Is that why you're concerned that you've turned it into an idol?
This reminds me of the Lion of Judah, that's all. It's the Lion of Judah spitting out, water comes out of his mouth, and it's really cool. And, and it's in like where I train at.
Brian, what would you say?
Well, Ron, I would say that's great. That's great you found that. It's cool that you really like the design. It's really cool that it reminds you of the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And just enjoy your fountain and thank the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Thank Jesus for his goodness to you and the fact that he let you find this cool thing.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Bobby?
No, when I hear questions like this, Ron, your heart just seems so tender in this, and it kind of saddens me sometimes just to picture people kind of getting worked up about this, thinking, oh, am I displeasing the Lord, when your heart's really, it's reminding you of him. If you called up and said, yeah, I'm feeding this statue and, I bow around it and, I bring chia seeds and, and produce incense in the presence, then, obviously that would be problematic. But what you're saying, it's no big deal, bud.
The story, I love this story in the life of Elisha, in the ministry of Elisha. Remember when he heals Naaman the Syrian, and he comes to the land of Israel, and Naaman tells him to go dip in the Jordan River, and at first he's incensed. He's like, "What, rivers in Syria are way better than this creek. What do I want to dip in here for?" But finally he's persuaded, no, you ought to do it. So he does it, and he's healed, and he's so thankful that he's healed. But then he's got to go back to Syria, and he's got to serve his master, the king. And part of that is when his king goes to worship his god Rimmon, this guy Naaman has to sort of, be there for him to lean on while he's worshiping. And so Naaman's worried about that. He says, when I get back and, my master, I'm obligated to do this. But just when I'm bowing down, just know that I'm not bowing to Rimmon. I'm bowing to Yahweh. I'm worshiping the true God. And I love Elisha. He just says, "Oh, go in peace." It's okay. God knows your heart. He knows you're not worshiping Rimmon. Don't worry about it. And I just think, that's just such a good reminder of how the Lord is with that sort of stuff. Because you could lay some serious guilt trip on somebody with something like that. You know what I mean? Like think of the people, Bobby. Think of the different jobs people have had. Where I think of people who are maybe bartending or something, and they're just so, this is their livelihood. This is the thing that they've got. They're loving Jesus. They're trying their best to serve the Lord. And somebody comes along and says, "Oh man, you're in such sin. What are you doing? How is it that you could even think that you could be a Christian and work in a place like this?" And they lay a big guilt trip on them. And I think the Lord would just say, "Hey, go in peace. Go to your job in peace. Don't worry about it."
Bobby?
Yeah, I mean, for tent making, Heather and I have a marijuana farm, and that really helps. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. We knew you would get sarcastic on us here.
Bobby? Never.
Wait, what would you say? I love that story too, Brian. But as you were thinking, okay, what would you say? What if Daniel would have said, I'm just going to bow down, but obviously my heart's not there. Or because I could even envision a culture where people are being persecuted, and they're like, "Look, what? My heart's going to stay clean here." What would you say to that kind of objection?
Well, I would say Daniel is a completely different case than Naaman. Daniel is an Israelite. He's a Jew. He's a believer in Yahweh from the time he's a child. And so he's not going to engage in that. Naaman's coming from a completely different culture with a completely different situation. He's going back, and he's basically going to be like the only guy in the court who is not worshiping Rimmon. So, I think it would be it would be apples and oranges. I don't think you could compare it,
That's a great answer. So it's kind of like, maybe just even a missionary going to a mission field and, maybe the first convert in that culture, he might be in a polygamous relationship, and he might say, "Look, I'm not expecting to go and leave all your other wives, but let's, moving forward, teach monogamous relationships. We realize you have a family to take care of, and we're not expecting to pick one and leave the others, but moving forward, let's, something like that."
Yeah, moving forward, definitely don't add anymore to your,
I think so. I just think what we see in Scripture in that story is a great illustration of it, and what we just know of God and His grace. He works with people. He brings us along. In our sanctification, He brings us along. I think of Peter. This is a completely different situation, but you think of Peter. Peter's an apostle. He's called by Jesus. He's doing miracles. People have been raised from the dead under his ministry. But then when it comes to Cornelius, who's this Roman centurion and a Gentile, Peter's sort of like, "Hey, I don't think I should go over there. This guy's a Gentile." So you realize Peter has these traces of sort of racism in him at this point still.
Yeah.
And he's an apostle. So what's the point? The point is we're on a journey, and God's sanctified us, and so we got to be patient.
Yeah. And even after that great vision, he forgets it again, has to get rebuked by Paul. You can have a powerful encounter with God.
Yes.
You need to have another encounter.
Exactly.
Yes, we are very forgetful people. Ron, thank you for calling today on Pastor's Perspective. And Pastor Brian, I think you need to go back and listen to the answer you gave Ron at the outset. The way you responded reminded me so much of Pastor Chuck. It just sounded very, I don't know. Just go back and listen to it if you have a chance.
Oh, right, Brian.
I'm not saying you sounded like him. It was just very Chuck-esque, perhaps.
Chuck-esque. Well, he did have a bit of an influence on me.
Just a little bit. All right, we'll be back with more questions. 888-564-6173. are listening to Pastor's Perspective, sponsored by Biola University, ranked as the most comprehensively Christian university in North America. Biola.edu to learn more. I'm Brian Perez, and we've got so many questions, so little time. So many good questions, I should say. Look at this. Phone line's almost filled up, and we've got some Facebook questions as well that we might get to, but keep those calls a-coming. 888-564-6173 is our number, and you can call in with your questions till 4 p.m. Pacific time. And to answer your questions, we've got Brian Broderson, the senior pastor of Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California, and Bobby Conway from Image Church in Charlotte, North Carolina, the author of the new book, Does Christianity Still Make Sense? Available on Amazon and Kindle and Audible. And did I name them all? Did I leave anything out?
I think you did. So, Bobby, I'm going to be on an airplane on Thursday morning flying to Mexico. And I'm taking your book with me. You're going to keep me company.
All right.
You know, I get this... I get this worldview. I subscribe to this worldview site, and they send me an email. You know, I don't know. It's not every day, I don't think, but it's fairly consistent. They send different articles, different things, talking about various apologetics types of issues and things. And the other day, I opened it, and to my delight, my great delight, it was an article by Bobby Conway, a section from your new book, and it was fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I felt so
I love that.
proud, like I know this person.
Started walking around showing
He's
everybody.
my friend.
See that guy?
I did. I said to Cheryl, look at this.
Yeah.
I got an email, and it has Bobby's article in it. Yeah, no, it was really good.
How fun.
That's great.
All right, 888-564-6173. Let's go to Oklahoma. Paul's listening on the K-Wave app. Thank you, Paul, for downloading the app. And thanks for calling in today. What's your question for Bobby and Brian?
My question is, my wife and I have been here in Oklahoma for over a year now and been looking for a home church. Very difficult, as you know. People leaving California trying to find a good church is not an easy task. So I was listening to one of my many Bible expositors on the radio. I've been teaching for over 50 years. Excellent expositor, knows the word, prolific writer. And when he was speaking on the Holy Spirit and the gifts of the Holy Spirit, he when he got to the portion of speaking in tongues, he was eviscerating it as some gibberish from their Christians' pagan past. When they're thinking they're talking about Jesus, they're really cursing him. And that is so out of character with this. And it was in the context of 1 Corinthians chapter 12. Mm-hmm. I did type it out. I recorded it. I have the full context, and I'm boggled. So, in looking at churches, this is one of the churches that are a satellite from or a branch off of pastor in California.
Yeah.
And everything fit. Vibrant church, good fellowship, great teaching.
Yeah.
Except that. What do you say, Pastor Brian?
Well, I know exactly who you're referring to. This would be John MacArthur.
I was going to say, is it the guy we were talking about last week?
Yeah.
Or almost the whole program?
Yeah, and John, this has been John's position for years. And he's, wrote a book years ago called, I think the title was The Charismatics, and he did just that. He just went through and lambasted and mocked and...
Did what he does.
Yeah, very, very critical. So I guess I would say in response, this is uniquely MacArthur-ish, but it doesn't mean that those who follow him necessarily would... they probably would agree with his theological position, but I don't know that they would be so snarky about it, for lack of a better word, and unkind, insensitive, and so forth. I know people that love John MacArthur and love his commentaries and have modeled themselves to some degree after his ministry, but haven't taken, and maybe even do hold a cessationist position, but haven't taken that really mean-spirited kind of an approach to it. So I think you're just going to have to evaluate by the church the experience you're having at the church yourself, rather than just automatically assuming because of the connection there must be the exact same attitude. But I would imagine that theologically they're in the same camp.
Bobby Conway.
Yeah, I think with what Brian said, not much to really add right there. I do think that he is obviously a Bible teacher. You're going to get a lot of good content. The big thing that I would be thinking through for me is just kind of the tone of things sometimes. Mm-hmm. I think the tone's really important, especially in a culture like that we live in right now. We can preach truth all day long, but I wouldn't want to have a reputation for grace and no truth, but I wouldn't want to have a reputation for being, hard on truth and, not really feeling a sense of creating a culture that comes off gracious. And so I do think sometimes there can be pockets, there can be groups within Christianity that can get passionate about a particular doctrine. That can happen in any different areas where you want to say all the other brands of Christianity are wrong. And I think sometimes we can lose sight of what we're really supposed to be unifying around on the gospel. And not only that, I do think in the same way that what I say to atheists, that you have to just deny every religious experience, every answer to prayer, every act of providence, every special revelation that's supposedly been given, every near-death experience. You just have to look in the face of all of that and just deny all of it. And I think that takes a lot. And I think that the cessationist has to be ready to do the same thing, to look at all of these spiritual experiences and basically just say, it's delusional, you're of the devil. And I'd much rather take an open but cautious. I do think that there are some rightful reprimands to be given for, sensationalism. And I also think that there can be a bit of a missing out on the cessationists. And that open but cautious view, it does seem like a wiser way, because you're not sitting there just denying everything and then, coming down on everything that doesn't fit that. So that would be my thought.
I wonder what area are you in, Paul, in Oklahoma?
We're in Yukon.
Okay. So did that answer help at all? That's probably the bigger question.
Yeah, I was going to ask the pastor about this tomorrow. I have a meeting with him just to go over their doctrinal beliefs, and that's going to be my biggest point to figure out is where do you stand on the work of the Holy Spirit?
Yeah. And like I said, I mean, there's plenty of guys out there that take that position theologically, but don't behave in that arrogant sort of way that MacArthur does. I still think that the theological position is the wrong one, and I do think it deprives people from certain experiences as well as expectations of the working of the Spirit. Like Bobby hinted at, of course, there's plenty on the other side to be critical of and to be aware of as well. The charismatic thing, I think a lot of times, I've felt this for many years, and I've actually had some interaction with MacArthur over this a little bit over the years. I think a lot of times he almost seems to be just reacting to the craziness within the charismatic movement rather than assessing really solid biblical ministries who who hold to a continuationist position. So, and of course, there's no excuse for that because there's plenty of examples that, he could look to. I mean, there was a time in John MacArthur's life when he was, proud to say that he was early on at Calvary Chapel and seeing, not he didn't attend here, but he would come occasionally and see what was happening and he would rejoice in it. These days, he's very negative about Calvary Chapel and sort of blames Pastor Chuck for bringing Lonnie Frisbee and the hippies and kind of just wrecking the church, just got people out of suits and ties and brought in guitars and drums and bass and, all of those abominable things that are part of the Jesus movement. He's, in his older age, he's very disturbed by these things. So anyway, God bless you, Paul, as you look for a place to land.
Yep, for sure. Now, I looked on the calvarychapel.com church finder, and I think there's only 2 Calvary Chapels in Oklahoma. So, Bobby, I think you should start a church in Oklahoma. It's closer to California, so it wouldn't take you as long to come out and visit us. I don't know. Just
Can
think
you
about
see
it.
me living in Oklahoma, man? I have a hard time in North Carolina sometimes, man. Missing California.
You know what though? What's the city in Oklahoma that I'm trying to think of? I just saw it on the map.
Tulsa.
Let's see. Tulsa, yes. Tulsa
Yes.
is, from what I understand, it's
Oral Roberts.
It's a really cool spot, though. And one of my friends pastors a church there called Church on the Move, and Bobby Whitgeorge he's one of the coolest dudes you'll ever meet. And so, be careful what you say about Oklahomans.
Hey,
Just a
I
warning.
love Okies. When I went to Arkansas and lived there, I tell you, I was a complete fish out of water. Showing up, and I was living in a dry city called Conway. People had gun racks. They were driving around with waders and camos. It was just, I had high top bands, board shorts. It just. I told you, I went into a bowling alley literally one time and I was like, man, bro, you must have been pretty stoked when you got that 300 ring. And he looks at me and goes, well, actually, I was sober. I was like, no, stoked, like happy.
They took one look at you in Oklahoma and said, we know that boy is from the land of fruits and nuts.
Yes.
There was no question about it.
All right. 888-564-6173 is the number to call. And now we're going to go to David in Whittier, California. Hello, David. Welcome to the program.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay, great. I can. Thanks for taking my question.
You bet.
My call. Yeah, so I had a couple questions. The thief on the cross, when he repented, Jesus said, today you'll be with me in paradise. And you kind of think paradise, you think heaven. But Jesus, 3 days later, after he resurrected, he told Mary, don't touch me because I haven't ascended to my Father, which I think is in heaven. So where did he go? Did he go to Abraham's bosom? Where did he go?
Bobby Conway, what do you think?
Well, in saying don't touch me, the proper, probably the better reading of that for getting rid of some of the confusion would be don't cling to me, because, he is not planning on staying here on earth. He's just got some momentary work to be done of showing himself as risen from the dead. As far as, where he would have went during that time, I don't think he went to hell. The Apostles' Creed talks about him descending into hell, but that would be a later revision. That wasn't a part of the original Apostles' Creed. So some would say that he went to hell to pay Satan a ransom to, ultimately redeem people. But Jesus was never in debt to Satan. And so I have a real uncomfortable feeling when I think about the ransom theory in that way, paying a ransom to Satan. So then others would say that, because you have his body that is in the tomb and his soul is out and about. So it's kind of an interesting kind of thought, right? Well, where is his soul at that time? So I would say that his soul, when, like, you have to keep in mind that when he resurrects, now his body is glorified. And so his body hadn't been to paradise, where his soul could have been, in the area of paradise, in the sense like of the two, the two quadrants, or I should say the two sections of the underworld, with Hades, and you have Gehenna or Tartarus. And so you have one side of it would be with the saints, and then the other side would be with the unredeemed. And so who's he preaching to? Is he preaching to the Old Testament saints, setting them, to loose? Or is he preaching to those who were a part of the flood and giving them this post-mortem opportunity of salvation, as some have brought up before? There's a lot going on as it relates to what do I think on that? I'm just not really sure. I mean, there's some interesting passages that we get, but there's not as much data as I would like to know how to put it all together. I can see a couple options, but the one option I would be uncomfortable with is that he is in hell. Now, when Jesus says, "Today you will be with me in paradise," obviously the thief would die, and where would the thief go? The thief would have went to the place where everybody else went that was dying before. It wasn't like the thief went to this new place, separated from all the other people who had died before that. So therefore, if Jesus said, "Today you'll be with me in paradise," and the thief went to the place where everybody else that was a believer had died, so then if he went to paradise, keep in mind that he would have went to paradise in his soul, but his body hadn't went and ascended to the Father yet. That would happen at the end of his appearances. So it's not that he might not have showed up in that space, but he wouldn't have showed up in that space the same way with a resurrected body. That's another way that maybe some people would look at it. I don't know. What do you think, Brian? Am I just
well, I think I think you covered all the bases. So yeah. I don't really have anything to add to that.
Do you have a position on that?
Well,
are you kind of ambiguous on where you come down, or?
I do think of the different ways the word paradise occurs in Scripture, and it refers, I think clearly Paul speaks of it in 1 Corinthians or 2 Corinthians 12 as the presence of the Lord, caught up into paradise. And so if we're going to look at it and use the way, Paul's understanding of it and apply it to what Jesus said, then you would have to say that, today you will be in paradise, meaning in the presence of the Lord. So I don't know. It's a little it's a little bit challenging, I think, to land super dogmatically on any one position.
Yeah. I feel that too.
David's other question was about self-proclaimed modern-day prophets like the ones on YouTube. He wants to know what we think about them. Pastor Brian?
Well, I try to give as little thought to them as possible. So
that says a lot.
Except for Kenneth Copeland.
Well, that's only between me and you. So we can have some intermittent laughter.
Laughs. Oh, my word. Brian will send me videos sometimes and vice versa where you'll get somebody, he'll just be playing an electric guitar, shredding electric guitar to Copeland. And Copeland looks like he's just been possessed by something, right? Like it really is.
And for our listeners,
a very weird look,
who have no idea what we're talking about, Kenneth Copeland is a notoriously outspoken leader in the prosperity doctrine movement, and has made some pretty near blasphemous statements over the years in his zeal for prosperity theology. And he's also made many false predictions. And of course, one of Bobby and my favorites is when he blew COVID away. But the problem was COVID with a heat wave. But the problem is COVID didn't go away. So I mean, that was there is a lacking in his spiritual power.
Just a little.
Yep.
David, thanks for your phone call today on Pastor's Perspective. Let's go to Dean in Corona, California. What did you want to know, Dean?
Well, when I came to the Lord, I had a long life of not having the Lord involved in my life, and when I did become a Christian, I was at a Pentecostal church, and at that Pentecostal church, when I got baptized, the pastor said that because I didn't come out of the water speaking in tongues, I was not filled with the Holy Spirit. And since then, I've been to another church that I'm non-denominational that I'm very happy with, and I've been to many Bible studies, many classes, and I understand it a little more. But I'm just concerned of why a pastor would say something of that nature unless he knew something that I had never read in the Bible or anything.
Brian, what do you say?
Well, this is a belief that is held by some Pentecostals, that the evidence for the baptism of the Spirit is speaking in tongues. So if you don't speak in tongues and you haven't been baptized in the Spirit. The problem, of course, is that it contradicts Scripture. Scripture does not teach that. We do have examples of people receiving the Spirit, especially in the book of Acts, and it is recorded that they speak in tongues. But then we have a couple of examples where they're baptized in the Spirit, and it doesn't say anything about them speaking in tongues. But even beyond that, Paul the Apostle, in writing to the Corinthians, in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, he is talking about the various giftings, and he's asking a series of rhetorical questions. The answer to all of the questions that he asks, it's the same. The answer is no. Are all apostles? No. We know that not everybody's an apostle. Do all have the gift of miracles? No. We know that not everybody has a gift of miracles. He asked the same question regarding tongues. Do all speak in tongues? The same answer applies there. No, not everyone speaks in tongues. So the Scriptures do not say that a Christian who is filled with the Spirit must speak in tongues. It is not the only evidence for the filling of the Spirit. It can be an evidence, but it's not the only evidence, or it's not the required evidence.
Now, do you think pastors like Dean's are the reason why pastors like John MacArthur come down on?
Yeah, to some degree, yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was saying earlier. MacArthur he's reacting to a lot of the super bizarre Kenneth Copeland kind of stuff that we were talking about a moment ago, but then also to things like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think we have time for one more phone call. Julie, quick, in Cherry Valley. What's your question?
Hi. Hopefully it's quick. I just had a question in regard to cremation and burial. And is there anything biblically stating that one is preferred over the other? And if you are cremated, do the remains have to be buried or in like a sacred place, or can you just keep them in an urn in your home?
Bobby Conway, 45 seconds.
Biblically, the prime way that you see happening is burial. But that's not to say that God can't figure out a way to put all things back together, because cremation just speeds the process up. And in fact, in certain parts of the world where you're out of real estate, cremation is really the only option. So that said, even people who were burned in fires or what have you that were believers, obviously the Lord can put all that back together. I think that if you want to be most biblical in the way you see it, and Judaism or what have you, you would do burial even within Christianity. But I don't think you're doing anything, godly. I just think Some people do it because of cost purposes. So I don't really think there's a absolute mandated way, but burial is the most biblical way.
And if you do cremate, Julie's other question was, is it okay to put them in an urn, or do you have to bury them or toss them at sea, whatever?
Yeah, I don't think that would be a problem. I have my grandpa's ashes.
Okay, very good. Julie,
grandma's.
thank you so much for calling us today on Pastor's Perspective. We're out of time. If we didn't get to your call today, call us back tomorrow. For Brian Broderson and Bobby Conway, I'm Brian Perez. And Pastor's Perspective was sponsored by Biola University, ranked as the most comprehensively Christian university in North America.